What's going on, guys? Aegis here. Today we're going to be talking about leveling up the Zealot inside of Warhammer 40k Darktide. The Zealot Preacher is a really nice iteration of the Zealot of the same name inside of Vermintide 2, where the more damage you take, the more damage you dish out in return. This is episode 2 of our Darktide guides, the last being the Psych or Psykinetic. Be sure to check that one out if you plan on starting one of those soon. For a quick overview of the Zealot Preacher, the class is best described as a berserker who literally doesn't care if they live or die just as long as you take them down with you. The class boasts built-in attack speed, which makes melee weapons such as daggers and the wieldier Thunderhammer highly sought after where you are shutting down large enemies with melee alone. The Zealot Preacher is a pretty forgiving class for players just starting out, and in the right hands can single-handedly carry a team or turn fights around with their incredible melee arsenal. As with all of my build guides, be sure to constantly be moving, as with any RPG like the classic Diablo 2 of old, or even now in Darktide, you're not earning any XP by just sitting in the hub world. Be sure to not fall in the trap of checking the shop after every level, and do your best just to head off to the next level when you can. Speaking of levels, it is heavily advised to stick to the Uprising difficulty, as that is the most efficient level to take on early. I'd say from the moment you are able to select that difficulty, stay there from until about level 15 to 20 depending on gear and what modifiers you have available to you. When playing Uprising, be sure to choose levels that have modifiers on them like pickup scriptures or more hordes. Once you're at level 20, I would suggest sticking to Malice difficulty until you hit level 30. Before talking about the leveling tree itself, we do need to talk about what's already built into our kit. Starting with Chastise the Wicked, the Preacher dashes forward, or you can target this at an enemy. You will replenish 50% of your toughness on activation, and you will also increase your next melee hit by 25%, and it also guarantees you a critical hit. This is a very powerful nuke ability, so be sure to use this when elites are present themselves. The ability itself has a 30-second cooldown, so really push this where you can, especially when you need your toughness back or you need to disengage or reposition in fights. Our Blitz is the Stun Grenade. It is literally a stun grenade. You throw it, it'll stun everybody in the blast radius. Next are the Iconics. We have Swift Exorcism. This gives us 10% more attack speed. For some weapons like the dagger, more attack speed also means extra mobility, so bear that in mind. We have Until Death. Every 90 seconds taking damage that would kill you, you will instead gain invulnerability for 5 seconds. And lastly, we have Martyrdom. Gain 5% damage for each 15% of your missing HP. This can also stack up to 3 times. There's an ability later on that we can take that will also increase the stacks as well. And lastly, our aura is the Emperor's Will, where allies will gain 7% toughness damage reduction. DR, or damage reduction, is crucial, especially when we dip into these harder difficulties, and luckily for us, the Zealot does have a bunch of ways to stack DR. For our tree itself, our first talent will be Enemies Within and Enemies Without, where we can replenish 5% of our toughness per second while within 5 meters of 3 enemies. It's a very strong talent early on, but later on though we will be taking either Purify in Blood or Faith Restored depending on our gear situation. Second will be Punishment. Attacks that hit 3 or more enemies grant 30% impact for 5 seconds. This will stack 5 times, and once you get to max stacks you will gain Uninterruptible. Uninterruptible is a modifier that will make it so that you are not getting interrupted mid-attack or staggered while performing certain actions. Our third talent will be Benediction, which will make our auras DR 15% DR instead of 7%. Our fourth talent will be Thy Wrath will be Swift. You no longer get stunned by enemy melee attacks when you take damage, and you also gain plus 20% movement speed for 2 seconds. This has great synergy with our second talent, which basically allows us to be mobile and not get stunned in engagements. For our last talent, we will grab Purge the Wicked, which gives us a second charge of Chastise the Wicked, which is ultra powerful. This will allow us to either nuke bosses or regain all of our toughness if we decide to use it twice in engagements. Later on, however, we can grab Invocation of Death instead, depending on our gear. As stated in my last guide, you want your build to cover 2 ranges and cover 2 forms of damage between short range to mid to long range and single target and AoE. This is paramount to any build, and if your build is a one-trick pony where it can only deal with one single situation, then that should be assigned to target those gaps in your build. When it comes to what weapons we'll be taking early for the Zealot, a lot of our damage will be dealing with this from close range, so a lot of the front-end damage is actually coming from melee. We're going to be using the Catachan Mach 3 Combat Blade, which will be available the moment you're able to visit the shop at level 2. A lot of endgame bleed stacking builds actually use this weapon as it has incredible burst damage and it offers a lot of mobility through the use of its heavy swings. Use the heavy to get around the map, and use the heavy to target elites. This is going to be one of the most efficient weapons to use at this level range, and personally I would avoid using the heavy sword, which also becomes available at level 3 and 7 respectively. They have great utility, but for just clearing through maps, the combat blade is just going to be the go-to. At level 11, start setting your sights on the Tigris Mach 2 Heavy Eviscerator. This will be a big power spike for us. We're able to rev the blade and shoot through enemies, especially those trickier armored ones like the Crusher and Maulers. And at level 15, start checking for the Curios Mach 2 Thunderhammer. This will be our weapon for the rest of the build. It is insanely powerful and will comfortably get us through the rest of the leveling process. When talking about range for our Zealot, there are some good options to actually cover our mid-range with. The moment we are able to access the shop at level 2, be on the lookout for the Lawbringer Mark 6 combat shotgun. This will be a very efficient leveling tool. It has everything we need it to do. Firing while aiming will reduce the spread of the shot to almost a slug round, which will be very good for the long ranges. And the special action will load a shot that will shoot horizontal. The shotty has quite literally everything we need, and you can absolutely take this all the way to level 30 if you wish. At level 8, be on the lookout for the Artemia Mach 3 Purgation Flamer. This has some very heavy utility, and it can also shoot through hordes. The stagger rate is a little inconsistent from time to time, but it's the AoE that we're actually after when it comes to the flamethrower anyway. At level 12, look out for the Lock Mach 2 B Spearhead Bolt Gun. This will be the last of our power spikes in terms of range weapons. The bolt gun easily takes care of bulwarks or any long range enemies like the sniper. When it comes to Curios and leveling, there's really no wrong answer here. Be on the lookout for toughness on your gear or max to wound. Stamina is not too important of a modifier, as our weapons outlined rolls with pretty good base stamina already. Be on the lookout for suffixes with the extra experience modifier, toughness modifier, or the cooldown reduction modifier as well. With all that being said, guys, that brings us to the end of the video. If you liked what I put out here, be sure to let me know what class you would like to see me do next in the next one, as I plan on making a leveling guide for each of the classes. We only have 2 more left, so let me know down below. And as always, thanks for watching.